All right, let's get started with your tropical update. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade. Of course, we were spared a direct hit or any kind of hit from a hurricane, a tropical depression, tropical storm. We've been monitoring that tropical disturbance that was brewing in the Gulf for much of the week. It did make landfall in southeastern Louisiana yesterday, and that put an end to any threat for tropical development in the Gulf, at least for this week. We have had three systems, though, so far for this hurricane season, at least in the Atlantic basin. We've gone through the A name, the B name, the C name, Andrea, Barry, and Chantal. Of course, Chantal, the only tropical storm so far this season that hit the U.S., making landfall 4th of July, holiday weekend up around the Carolinas and producing some flash flooding there. So we were thinking we could possibly have Dexter, maybe another tropical storm in the Gulf, but that system never really quite got its act together. It remained weak, disorganized throughout the week, and it remained very close to that north central Gulf Coast. So it didn't really have much of a chance to tap into that super warm water in the Gulf well into the 80s. So it made landfall yesterday with very little fanfare. It has been dumping some heavy rain across parts of Louisiana, but there's no longer any type of chance that it will turn into a tropical system. So what kind of effects will we have in Houston? Well, we have some heavy downpours around the H-Town area, and that will continue for tonight and possibly a few more downpours for Saturday. Other than that, the tropics remain very quiet for now, with no action expected for at least the next week. So that is some good news. But as I always say, when things are quiet, that's the time to make sure that you are prepared for a tropical storm or hurricane. You don't want to be scrambling at the last minute. Satellite and radar at this point will show you what's left of that tropical disturbance now making its way over towards Shreveport, Texarkana. You can still see that spin there, and all of the moisture it's still dragging up from the Gulf. So even though it never became a tropical system, it still has a lot of moisture with it, and that will translate into some heavy downpours. So you can see the heavy downpours developing south of Houston, down closer to the coast near Lake Jackson, Galveston, Bay City. A few showers and storms there. Still the risk for flash flooding for southern Louisiana. Flood watch continues here through 7 p.m. Saturday for southwestern parts of Louisiana, including Lake Charles. So there's still some impacts from this system, even though it was never officially a tropical system. In fact, for the Houston area, we still have a 1 out of 4 risk for some street flooding, isolated street flooding, and that risk shifts to the east tomorrow, but still includes Liberty and parts of Chambers County. So even though that system did not become a tropical storm or tropical depression, we still have impacts. Like I said, outside of that, things are quiet. We've had the 3 tropical storms so far this season, 0 hurricanes, 0 major hurricanes, but Colorado State University forecast still projects that it will likely still be an above average season, calling for 16 named storms, out of those 8 becoming hurricanes and 3 becoming major hurricanes. Average season would typically bring us about 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. So it's been fairly quiet so far, but usually the first 1 to 2 months of our hurricane season are kind of quiet. It's really August and September where things usually start to kind of fire up. We definitely have the warm water in place across the Gulf, the Northwest Caribbean, the Western Atlantic to support additional tropical activity. Temps well into the 80s. So if that system, that tropical disturbance that we did have in the Northern Gulf was able to kind of jog south and stay over water longer, it probably would have rapidly strengthened, but thank goodness that did not happen. So why are we so quiet in the tropics right now? Well, you can see all of this Saharan dust that continues to swirl out there in the Atlantic. Another batch of it set to roll into the Caribbean, parts of the Gulf as we go through next week. So that dusty air is very dry air. So that helps to suppress or inhibit these tropical cyclones from developing. So as long as we have all this dust out there, we're not really going to have a ton of hurricanes or tropical storms. So I think for the rest of this month, we're going to have a lot of Saharan dust. As we get into August, that dust will kind of start to thin out, go away some, and we'll likely start to have more tropical systems. So our Fox Weather tropical model showing that yes, there will be a few disorganized showers and storms around the Caribbean islands, over towards Central America, Mexico, and even into parts of the western and southwestern Atlantic, but nothing that's really looking impressive or looking very organized for the next week or so. So at this point, National Hurricane Center thinking no tropical activity expected for the next 7 days across the Atlantic basin. So that is good news. However, like I said, there's still always a chance, so you never want to totally let your guard down. For the rest of this month, there will be a low chance for tropical development, and the hot zones or hot spots where we could have a slightly higher shot would be the northwestern Gulf, northwestern Caribbean, and western parts of the Atlantic. Jumping into August, notice the colors got to switch up on us because the threat for hurricanes really starts to increase. For the western Atlantic, right off of the east coast of the U.S., the north central Gulf, we start to see an elevated chance where tropical systems are more likely, and even into parts of the Caribbean, it looks like it's still possible. As we go into September, that's when we really have the highest risk for these hurricanes in the western Atlantic, impacting the east coast of the U.S. Chance for hurricanes really starts to increase for the Gulf and into the northwestern Caribbean. Yes, the threat is on the high side. So we're going to have to monitor things closely. We are just in the second month of the 2025 Atlantic Basin hurricane season. And notice, historically, there's not much tropical action for June and for July. But notice the spike as we get to the middle of August and through the beginning of October. That's typically where we have most of our tropical activity. Named storms, hurricanes. So even though it's been a fairly quiet start, I don't want you to get comfortable, get into a lull or thinking that, oh, it's not going to be a busy season, nothing much is going to happen, because we could start getting multiple storms all at once and things could fire up very quickly. So just keep in mind that it is going to likely start to get more active as we go towards August, September, and make sure that you've got your hurricane emergency gear ready to go. Start reviewing your insurance plans, make sure you have the coverage you need, and make sure you have your papers protected in case your house gets flooded. That's something else that you really need to think about. Go over evacuation routes if you live in an evacuation zone. Prepare. That's the best thing to do when it's quiet, so when things get crazy, you don't have to scramble at the last minute. But thank goodness, no tropical activity out there at this point. So we're looking good for now, but of course we have these updates daily, and if anything looks troublesome or concerning, you'll be the first to know. We'll have more Texas live and local for you after the break.